Welcome, everybody, to the Friar Talk podcast. Today, we're going to be recapping the Giant series, previewing the Rockies series, and then talking a little bit about CJ Abrams. So let's get it started. Chase, what was just your overall thoughts on this Giant series?
I'm kind of disappointed that we lost, but the pitching was good for the most part. We got to see the kind of reemergence of solid Chris Paddock. His velocity was back. He got a couple strikeouts on I wouldn't say he got a couple strikeouts. He showed that his curveball was pretty solid today. He got a few strikeouts. Weathers came in for 3 innings. It was solid. The bats came alive today, which is good to see because the bats were pretty dead the last 2 days. Cronenworth has been back. He's back out of his slump. Myers is showing that he's getting out of it. So you know what? I'm kind of looking forward to the next series and seeing these bats come alive again. Hopefully the pitching's been or continues to be great. Snell and Musgrove, weren't the best, but you know what? As the season continues, I expect better from them and just continue. The Padres are going to Padre.
Yeah, pretty stagnant offense to begin the series. We put up, what was it, 4 runs off two-run bombs in 1 inning. So other than outside of that 1 inning, the rest of those 18 innings, there was really no production from the offense other than 1 run in the second game. Gossman has really had our numbers, so props to that guy. He owns us right now. But this offense really came alive this past game, put up a lot of runs. And that was kind of the best version of the offense we've kind of seen so far. Just getting runners on, getting runners in, hitting those bombs that we've needed, and it was really good to see out of them. But it was frustrating to watch Blake Snell struggle again, especially talking about it. We gave up a lot for the guy, and it is very early on in the season, and Tingler was saying that he's not worried yet. I'm not worried yet either. I think he is going to bounce back, but we can only go based off what we've seen right now. And right now, we've definitely seen him struggle a lot. As for Joe Musgrove, ever since that whole no Joe thing kind of happened, he's kind of checked out a little bit. I expect it to get better, but like his main problem is just he's missing his spots with his off speeds right now. And in that Dodgers game, he wasn't even hitting his spots. He wasn't getting anyone to chase, and that's what his game relies on. So overall, it wasn't the series we wanted, but this last game was definitely a wake-up call, a kind of like a explosion that we kind of just got to hope rolls on to the next series.
So going back to Snell a little bit, I was at that game, and it is so, frustrating watching him, especially in person. Obviously, you can, kinda be there. I don't know. There's something, a little bit different about when you're at the stadium. You can almost, feel the frustration from, the crowd, because there was a lot of Padres fans there too. But you can, kind of feel the frustration from the crowd, and, people are talking, kinda and then there's also the Giants fans heckling him because he can't throw any strikes. I think he walked 6 guys, and it was almost an outing where he only allowed, I think it was just the 2-run home run. So, it was almost 2 runs, but then after he came out, the other 2 guys scored. But, the whole time he's there, he's struggling to throw strikes. He threw 51% of his pitches were balls. You can't go out there and throw more balls than strikes. That is and that's just been the issue with him. And I think that you guys were saying that he was talking about it in a press conference, basically that, it's kind of been such, a lot of pressure, I think he was saying, about just, trying to, get past, being this, 5-inning guy, and that, they weren't gonna, make any, sudden changes or anything. Is that what he said? Something like that?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of just pressured himself a lot into trying to get to that 6th inning, and you could see his frustration in his face whenever he starts struggling in the third, fourth, or fifth, because he really does want to get to that 6th inning really bad. It's just a matter of he's just not his ball to strike ratio is way too it's too close. So
Well, yeah,
yeah, but
and it's causing him to go out there and throw, 90 pitches in the 5th inning, so many games. So, I think it was kind of frustrating to watch. Still, I think he allowed 1 hit, home run. I mean, he might have allowed 2, but there's so many outings where we see him pitch 5 innings and he allows a hit, but it's still he's looked like he struggled. We've seen that so many times. So, I mean, I just haven't. I don't think I've watched enough of Blake Snell to really know okay, is this what we're always gonna expect from him? Is this something that he can get better at? Does he just is it just kind of he's almost slumping, I guess, a little bit different for a pitcher, but just having some struggles. So that's the big question for me there. But then you also talked about Joe Musgrove, how he's just kind of been not exactly quite there. I know that some people were talking about maybe it's part of it was that Austin Nola was calling the game and he hasn't really called that much of him. And like some people were kind of like questioning like the I think it was just like when he was utilizing some of his breaking balls, like Caratini had done it quite differently. And so they're saying like, hey, like just give Austin Nola some time to mesh and it'll look a lot better. Also, the one thing about Musgrove too is like he's also just been kind of burned by home runs, it seems, lately. Like it hasn't been that bad. Like he doesn't go out there and look like terrible, like and I was talking to you guys about this, like he still went out there and pitched 5 innings, even in a game where he really struggled, and he only gave up 4 runs. If your offense is really clicking, if he starts on Sunday, they're gonna win. Like so it's not like he's putting them in a spot where they have no chance. And I expect him to bounce back a lot. But I guess then kind of talking about something like kind of switching gears a little bit. Fernando Tatis, we were talking about how he hits so much better at one. So I just kind of want to hear like what are your guys' thoughts on him being the leadoff hitter like day in and day out?
Yeah, I would be completely fine with it. Him at 1 and either Profar or Grisham at 2. Just have a lot of guys that can get on base at the top of the lineup, or Tatis just being Tatis and being able to hit a leadoff home run. Just something to jump the offense when they do get into those games where they're kind of just slumping. Nobody's really doing anything. Then you have like Cronenworth and Myers who are starting to come back from a slump, and having those guys at the top of the lineup or just being able to kickstart the offense with a leadoff home run, it's going to be major for the team.
Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's pretty much, I mean, that's the main thing. The guy absolutely rakes from the leadoff spot. And we saw that today. We saw that throughout the Dodgers series. In that Dodgers series, that was historic. And throughout that series, he was the leadoff. He hit 5 home runs in the leadoff spot. And of course, they were all solo shots, but that's not his fault that nobody at the bottom of the lineup is getting on. And that's the most unfortunate thing, is that his production is from the leadoff spot where no one is getting on for him. So of course you'd want his production to be from the 2-3 hole, but if he's batting, I saw his numbers today from the leadoff spot. He's batting over 300, producing a lot of runs, and that's when our offense is at its best. So you can't move him from that spot anymore. That's his spot, and that's where he produces the most, and that's where our offense is the best.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of it. I know that sometimes it's kind of like difficult when you're like, all right, you have a guy that's going to hit as many home runs as he's going to over his career, and having so many of them turn into solo shots is definitely like a disadvantage, I guess. But one thing that I've noticed is that when he hits leadoff, the rest of the lineup looks a lot better too. Like that's one of the reasons why I think it works like well. And we were talking about this this is mostly when we've been praising Profar, but Profar, when he hits in the bottom of the order, like last year especially, we saw Tatis drive him in so many times. If you're still like their lineup's deep enough where there's still going to be guys on base, but when he's hitting, it almost adds like this like new pressure to the pitcher, like when he has to go through the whole lineup, like, oh, I got to make sure I like do really well on the bottom of the order guys. And I don't know if it's, I mean, like it's not like it's that big of a difference when he's hitting 2 compared to 1, but it's something about him like being like having that leadoff mentality and like that aggressive mentality. And I went back to his 2020 numbers when he was batting first, he was hitting 295. So that's a lot better than when he was hitting second, which was 257. I know this year I think it's 362. I know it's 360 something when he's been first. And then second and third, he's hitting like barely over 100 in both those spots in 2021. But then the thing that like really made me feel like I really want to see him in leadoff spot is in 2020, his batting average when he was behind in the count was 86. And then this year and in his rookie year in 2019, the batting average was 240 in those spots. He's not as good of a hitter when he's behind in the count than when he's ahead in the count. And I was talking to you guys about it. I just think that if you are a leadoff hitter, you get the chance to be ahead in the count so much more often, and you're going to be throwing so many more strikes. Because especially starting out a game, like that's why we see him take so many like leadoff home have. That's why we've seen him have so many leadoff home runs, because the pitcher comes out and throws a couple strikes. They don't want to walk the first guy. Walking Fernando Tatis to start a game against the Padres that's a terrible way to start the game, like, so I just think that we're going to see him, like, I think we should see him in the leadoff spot, like 100% moving forward. But I mean, that's kind of all I had for the recap. One other thing I just wanted to note was I love the way they did the opener on Sunday. I talked to you guys about having some of the spots in the rotation be a opener come in for 3 and then have another guy come in for 3. And I know not everyone likes the opener, but I'm a huge fan of it. So what are your guys' thoughts on the opener?
I'm a fan of the opener for guys like Lamet, maybe Weathers, because then you can piggyback the two and you limit their innings, you limit their pitch count, and it sort of helps with the arm issues that they've been having. Like if you don't do the 6-man rotation and give each guy an extra day's rest, why not piggyback them to both limit the innings and pitches that they throw in a game? So you can do it with certain guys, but certain guys, it would depends on each pitcher what they're comfortable with. Like Weathers could be an opener, but I don't know if or Weathers can come out of the bullpen, but I don't know if Lamet could. So it's like if your starting pitcher's okay with coming out of the bullpen and they're like actually their game plan doesn't change, and because some pitchers they don't work out of the bullpen well. So if they can do that and you succeed, then yeah, I'm all for the opener. But if not, then you might want to stick to how the game's been played.
Anytime you can get Paddock out of there unscathed, that's kind of a W in itself because you let Paddock go 3 today, and the dude looked. I don't know what it was about him today. He looked really good. He looked confident up there. It seemed like whenever he got into those 2-strike counts, he knew he was going to get the out. And major props to Chris Paddock for that today. And I think that's kind of the role that Chris Paddock is going to be really good in, is when you have Weathers come in as that long reliever, throw 3 innings. And it really sucks because I really like Ryan Weathers as a starter. He's going to be an amazing starter down the road. Just his role right now might be as that long reliever. And if Paddock can go 4 and Weathers can go 3, then the rest of the bullpen's safe for the next day. So I think I really like the idea, just with mainly Paddock.
Yeah, for Paddock, I didn't really bring him up at all, I guess, but I thought today it looked so much different than it has in the past. He comes out, and a lot of times, I think it was the second inning this game, I want to say someone got on and then maybe he walked someone. And I immediately thought, oh no, this is the big inning. And I feel like this is the first time this whole year where it hasn't it hasn't been that big inning. So he got out of a lot of jams. He pitched 3 innings. He had allowed 4 hits and a walk. So there's 5 base runners in those innings. But he got out of those jams. He got out of 2 guys on twice. Like that's like props to him because that's been something that he's really struggled with. And I believe both, at least the last one, he got a strikeout. But he had some strikeouts in some important moments too. And he just looked good. There was a double play in the first, so like he just looked good. I mean, it was the best he'd looked. The curveball was excellent. The strikeout he had with it was really really nice, and it was really good to see that because that's just been something that we haven't really got to see. And Isaac, I think you said it best when we were talking about earlier. He just looked really really confident. So definitely important to bring that up. But anything else you guys want to add to this recap episode?
I just wanted to bring like one thing up with Snell because I didn't get a chance to say it at the time. One of the reason he could be struggling is he's just trying to be too perfect. Like he's like you guys were saying with the pressure, he's trying to get into those, deeper innings, the 6th, 7th inning. And with him just trying to be too perfect, he's just trying to strike out too many guys or make his pitch too often, and it's causing him to miss probably. That's what I think it is. There's a thing being called effectively wild, and sometimes you just don't know where it goes and you throw it across the plate. More often times than not, the swing it's going to be like a weak ground ball or something. So Snell loosens up a little bit, takes some of that pressure off himself, and lets him how he used to be on the Rays. He didn't always strike out everybody. He got some weak ground balls and everything. If he can go back to that, he'll get into those deep innings, and we won't have to worry about him right now.
Definitely hope that happens. He's definitely just struggled to kind of get past the 5th, which I told you guys. I thought he was probably gonna. I thought it was like him and Darvish were gonna be the clear like 1 and 2, but they were like both like up there, and it just hasn't started out that year or that way this year. But it's okay. I still think Snell's definitely gonna bounce back. So I'm glad that you brought that up. But I think that's gonna do it for this recap segment.